Ladies and gentlemen, delivering his first address as President and CEO of Hamilton Health Sciences, Rob Macisaac.
Thank you very much, Keenan. This is a very cool place. It's really cool because I can't see any of you. These lights are right in my eyes, so if you're making any kind of rude gestures, it just doesn't matter to me. So thanks to the Chamber for once again organizing this event, which I think is a great city-building event, and I think it's an important tradition and one that I hope will last for a long time. Thanks too to the Scottish Rite for opening up this very special place. It's kind of like Hogwarts or something. It's pretty cool being here. So, and obviously thanks to all of you for being engaged citizens in Hamilton, and being here because it means you obviously want to make a difference. So I only have 10 minutes to speak because Keenan took so long. There is a clock over here which I thought I could see, but I can't see. Well, it's gone to sleep. Well, then I'm not going to worry about 10 minutes. So I want to do three things. I want to brag a little bit about HHS. I want to talk a little bit about the challenges facing all of us in healthcare, and what an honor it is to be appearing alongside Kevin Smith, who is so experienced and has been a great support to me already in the sector. And then I want to talk a little bit about what I think the opportunities are for the private sector, given the foregoing. So many of you will be aware that we are an academic and teaching hospital, which really means we have three clear mandates. We are a research institution, we're a teaching institution, and probably the thing that occupies most of our attention, we are a place that provides care. So in many respects, we're caring for the community and beyond today at the very same time that we're building the care model for tomorrow. You don't hear that much about research, which is amazing to me because there are such amazing things going on in research here in Hamilton. And it's important for this community. We know there's a real multiplier effect when it comes to dollars spent in research. Something like 3 times what we spent gets produced in the economy when we engage in research. You should know, we have, just at HHS, we have about 1 million people around the world participating in dozens and dozens of clinical trials. We have world-class researchers. I had dinner with a group of our researchers not that long ago. It's a very exciting thing to talk to these people about what they're doing. And they are, and I'm not exaggerating, they are changing the health of the world's population. They are literally doing that, and it's happening right here in Hamilton. And it's something we should all be extraordinarily proud of. We are also a place where students learn, so we're a key partner to Mohawk and McMaster. We've got 1,500 nursing students at any given time working on clinical placements, 900 resident physicians, another 2,400 medical students in placements in our institutions across the city, and I know Kevin Smith will have an equally impressive story. So those 2 anchor institutions are irrevocably tied to us in that regard because we're helping them teach their students, and their students are helping sustain what we do. So what about the other leg of that stool? Well, we are made up of 10 different locations at Hamilton Health Sciences. We've got 7 hospitals. We've got a cancer center, a rehab center. We've got an urgent care center. And as you can see by this slide, we serve really huge numbers of people. No, that's in part, that's because, yeah, sure, we're a big city, but Hamilton Health Sciences also plays this really important regional role. We're a regional center for care. And that means that we see about nearly 700,000 people every year. 700,000 patients come through our doors, just about. So that's like everybody in Hamilton coming at least once, and a lot of them coming twice. We do 24,000 surgeries annually, so that's enough to fill up all of the new Tiho Stadium. You could fill up that whole stadium, and that represents the number of surgeries we do. We are provincial leaders in so many different ways. The General is a leading heart institute in the province and in the country. We do the most cardiac surgeries in Ontario. We are the third busiest trauma center in Ontario. At the Juravinski, we're a leading cancer care and orthopedic center. We do the most chemotherapy treatments of any hospital in Ontario, so the second most joint replacements. You know, so I kind of get our children's hospital to some extent. It was born in controversy, but you know what? We should be so proud of that place. It is a gem in the province. It is our fastest growing institution within the Hamilton Health Sciences family. And there are extraordinary things that are happening in that children's hospital on a daily basis. It's a really important place for this city, this region, this province. And as you're traveling around, I hope you're all aware of what an important gem that we have in this family of care institutions in our children's hospital. And whatever else you want to say about it, today it serves an important function that is not to be minimized. How do we do all this stuff? Well, Keenan talked about our employment. We have 12,000 staff. We have almost 2,000 physicians, a huge army of volunteers, which is awesome, and a bunch of students. We generate about $4 billion in economic activity. So that's sort of the nice side of the healthcare story. We have this extraordinary set of hospitals here in town providing wonderful care because we have this group of passionate, dedicated people that are doing it. Well, what are our challenges? We are facing this kind of perfect storm that probably gives both Kevin and I a hard time sleeping some nights. We've got flat to declining revenues from government, and we're facing this huge tsunami of cost increases. On the revenue side, we all know governments are in deficit. Healthcare is about 38% of the budget, and if we maintained that current model within a decade, the current model of care within a decade would be 70% of the budget. Government doesn't have a lot more money to give us. Our current model projects these huge increases in costs, so what are we going to do about that? What's driving those costs? Well, for sure, there's internal inflation. We've got big employee groups, and they are getting, their wages go up. We had a cold winter. Our energy costs kind of went through the roof. So there's a bunch of internal, all of your organizations probably experience some of those pressures. But maybe more significantly, we've got this aging population. As people get older, managing their health becomes a lot more complex. If you look at the universe of patients, about 5% of our patients consume 2/3 of our resources. And many of those people, that 5%, are seniors, and they're living with multiple chronic conditions. As Keenan said, we have an aging population, especially in Hamilton. And these baby boomers in particular are contributing to numbers. We know in this land, in about 5 years, about 20% of our population will be seniors, and they tend to have these very complex conditions. Of the seniors that come to us with complex conditions, typically they'll see as many as 6 different physicians in terms of figuring out what their regimen of care will be. So what have we been doing? This isn't just happened all of a sudden. Well, if you look over the last 7 years, HHS has effectively taken about $100 million out of our operations. We've accommodated our internal rate of inflation. We've coped with flattening revenues. We have done all of that, and we've had increased demands for service. We've done it all within the context of balancing budgets. And I have to say, it's getting harder. It gets harder every year. The fruit on the tree is harder to reach. And I think going forward, we're really going to have to think about some transformative, some systemic kinds of changes in order to accommodate this flattening of revenues and cost increase pressures for me, I think there's really three big buckets when you think about sustainability for us going forward. We need to be the sharpest people in the room when it comes to our business processes. We need to rationalize where and when we provide care because, frankly, we have a pretty irrational system right now. And we as hospitals need to be relentless about improving how we provide care, how we drive waste out of our system. Those are kind of the big itches that are going to need to be scratched. And I think when you think about our challenges, you should also be thinking about what your opportunity is as business people, as people in the private sector, to help us scratch those itches. So, when I say business processes, what do I mean? Well, I think that's really about our kind of back office functions. How do we minimize our costs and maximize our revenues, and not, yes, government revenues, but also non-governmental revenues. We're really going to have to think a lot, rethink about how we finance and maximize the utilization of our physical plant. We're going to need new systems that are going to allow us to be more strategic when it comes to managing things like our supply chain, our scheduling, et cetera, et cetera. So your opportunity, or the opportunity for the private sector from my perspective, is helping us to devise, implement, run better systems that are going to allow us to make smarter decisions about how we run our hospitals. And it's going to have to be in real time because that's really the next, that's the leading edge, that's the next frontier when it comes to us in terms of driving waste out and finding better value. This issue of right care at the right place at the right time, you know, we're using our hospital for a whole bunch of purposes that we shouldn't be using our hospitals for, quite frankly. We're using them as after-hours clinics. We're using them as nursing homes and retirement homes. We're using our hospitals for respite care. We're using our hospitals as hospices. You know, out of that whole litany of possible care models that are out there, hospitals are the most expensive. And we have to be, because we have to do all this really complicated stuff that requires us to have an infrastructure in place that's really expensive. And we have to do it 24/7, but we're kind of victims of our own success because we're open 24/7. We've now become the default for all of these other forms of care. But they could all be performed a lot more efficiently if we did them in other places, if the community got more involved. So what are the opportunities for the private sector? Well, I think if I was a builder, developer, I'd be thinking about new housing forms that would allow people to live in a way that they can be assisted with multiple complex conditions, that they can stay there longer without coming to hospital. That's going to be a really important housing form going forward in the future. I also think there's new kinds of support services that the private sector has to be thinking about as interesting opportunities. And you know, it's not that complicated. There are so many people who come to our hospitals who would not come if they had a well-informed, engaged, attentive son or daughter. But they don't. And so they turn to us. But if you, as a business provider, could take care of these people like a good son or a daughter would, you could keep them out of hospital. You'd be generating real value. Now, I don't know exactly what the business model would be, but what I do know is I could save a bunch of money if that was happening. So there would be money freed up in the system. We'd have a better use of our hospitals, less pressure. And I'll just to be frank, these people will be better off out of hospital. The hospital is not the right place for so many people who end up in the hospital. I know I'm running out of time. The last thing is continuous improvement in care. So how can we maximize the value add of our staff as they play their roles? One of the things I've been doing since I started is going to the wards and just following people around, following a nurse around, and seeing how she spends her time or his time. It's very interesting. I mean, these are really highly skilled people who are passionate about their jobs. They love taking care of our patients, but like we've turned them into data entry clerks. We've turned them into scroungers, hunter-gatherers. We've turned them into porters. We've turned them into kind of IT repair people. In a typical shift, how much time do our nurses spend actually at the bedside adding value to the patients? That's sort of the next frontier for us as we try to imagine how it is we can do more for less. If we can maximize the value add of those staff, allow them to do what they want to do, there's a lot of juice we could squeeze there. But it's not that easy. And so if I'm in the private sector, I'm thinking about how can I devise systems, apps, technologies that will allow our staff to be the best that they can be and spend a lot less time doing these other things which are really extraneous to their core value. So I hope this has left you with some food for thought. I hope this is the start of a conversation. You all know where I am, so let's talk. Thank you very much for having me.